Ladies and gentlemen, every decision we make is a reflection of the time in which it was made. At any given moment, we act based on the knowledge, emotions, and circumstances available to us. Yet, as time moves forward, we often find ourselves looking back, questioning whether we made the right choice. This is where regret creeps in, making us wonder what could have been if we had chosen differently. But should we really regret changing a decision when time itself changes everything, even our own face? Life is constantly evolving. The thoughts that seem so clear today may feel uncertain tomorrow. The convictions we hold strongly at one point in time may waver as we gain new experiences. Just as we cannot stop our reflection from changing in the mirror as years pass, we cannot expect our past choices to always align with our present understanding. It is unfair to judge past decisions with the wisdom that only time has given us. What felt right then was right for that version of us, the one who had yet to experience everything that followed. Regret often arises when we measure our choices against outcomes we never could have predicted. We think, if only I had done this differently, maybe things would have been better. But who is to say that a different decision would have led to a better outcome? Life is unpredictable. The path we didn't choose remains unknown, and the idea that it would have been perfect is nothing more than an illusion created by our mind. The truth is, every choice brings its own set of challenges, lessons, and growth. Instead of wasting time mourning an alternate reality that never existed, we should acknowledge that every decision, right or wrong, has played a role in shaping us. Think of a person standing at a crossroads, unsure which path to take. They choose one, and years later they wonder if the other path would have led them to greater success or happiness. But what they fail to realize is that they are not the same person who stood at that crossroads. They have grown, learned, and changed. The regrets they feel now are based on the perspective of a person who has already traveled a different road. This is why regret can be deceptive. It makes us believe we had full control over outcomes when, in reality, life is shaped by countless, unpredictable factors. Time has a way of softening even our deepest regrets. If we allow it, it teaches us that what seemed like a mistake was just another step in our journey. Looking back with regret does not change the past. It only takes away the peace of the present. Instead of mourning over a decision we cannot undo, we must learn to trust that our past self did the best they could with what they knew at the time. This trust allows us to move forward without carrying the unnecessary burden of self-doubt. As time changes our face, it also changes our mind. We must accept that we are not meant to remain the same. Just as we grow out of old clothes, we grow out of old decisions. What once fit perfectly may no longer serve us, and that is okay. The key is not to fear change or regret the choices that led us here, but to understand that every step, every decision, and every moment has contributed to the person we are today. So instead of looking back with regret, let us look ahead with confidence. The past is unchangeable, but the future is still ours to shape. Regret is something we all experience at some point in life. It creeps in when we start questioning our past choices, wondering what could have been if we had acted differently. It is natural to look back and see things more clearly, but the problem with regret is that it often comes with an unfair advantage, the wisdom of hindsight. When we made those decisions, we didn't have the knowledge we have now. We were different people, shaped by different experiences and emotions. If time itself changes our face, how can we expect our past decisions to remain untouched by change? The truth is, regret is inevitable, but what truly matters is how we respond to it. Do we let it consume us, or do we choose to grow from it? Many people spend years dwelling on choices they wish they had made differently. They think about relationships they could have saved, opportunities they could have taken, or risks they should have avoided. But no matter how much we replay the past in our minds, we cannot go back and change it. What we can do, however, is take the lessons from those moments and use them to shape a better future. Every decision, whether right or wrong, teaches us something valuable. The pain of regret should not be a weight that holds us down. Rather, it should be a reminder of how far we have come. Think about how time changes our perspective. What once seemed like a disaster may later reveal itself as a blessing in disguise. Perhaps a job we lost led us to a better opportunity. Perhaps a failed relationship helped us understand ourselves better. In the moment, it is difficult to see the bigger picture, but as time passes, we often realize that what felt like a mistake was actually a step toward something greater. Regret is only powerful when we refuse to see the growth that comes from it. One of the biggest traps of regret is self-blame. People often punish themselves for not knowing better at the time. They think, if only I had made a different choice, my life would be better now. But this kind of thinking ignores one simple truth. We can never know for sure what would have happened. Life is not a single straight path. It is a series of unpredictable events. The decision we regret changing may have led to an entirely different set of challenges, ones we cannot even imagine. Instead of assuming that an alternate choice would have been perfect, we must accept that every path has its own struggles and lessons. Growth is a choice. We can either stay stuck in regret, constantly wishing we had done things differently, or we can take responsibility for our journey and move forward. The key is to shift our focus from what if to what now. Instead of wondering how things could have been, we should ask ourselves what we can learn and how we can improve. This mindset allows us to use our past decisions as stepping stones rather than stumbling blocks. Regret loses its power when we realize that change is constant. Just as time alters our appearance, it also changes our needs, desires, and perspectives. The things we regret today may not even matter to us in a few years. The lessons we learn now will guide us toward better choices in the future. Rather than fearing change or mourning the past, we should embrace the fact that we are always evolving. The past cannot be rewritten, but the future is still in our hands. Life is never stagnant. Everything around us is in a state of constant motion. Seasons change, people grow, circumstances shift, and even our own thoughts evolve with time. Nothing remains the same, and that is the very essence of life. Yet, when it comes to decisions, we often expect them to be permanent, as if they should remain unaffected by the ever-changing nature of our existence. We look back and question why we changed a decision, why we let go of something, or why we chose a different path. But the truth is, just as time changes our face, it also changes everything else. What made sense at one point may no longer fit into the present, and what once seems like the right choice may lose its meaning as we grow. We often resist change, even though it is the most natural thing in the world. There is a comfort in familiarity, in holding on to what we know, even if it no longer serves us. But life does not wait for us to catch up. It moves forward, forcing us to adapt whether we are ready or not. When we look back with regret over a decision we altered, we forget that we changed it for a reason. In that moment, something inside us recognized that we needed a different direction. We may not have known exactly where it would lead, but we knew that staying in the same place was no longer an option. It is easy to romanticize the past, to believe that if only we had stayed the same, everything would have been perfect. But this thinking is an illusion. The past is remembered through the lens of nostalgia, not reality. We forget the struggles, the doubts, and the reasons we made the choice to change in the first place. And yet, we hold on to regret as if undoing our decision would have kept everything frozen in time. But time does not freeze. Even if we had stayed on the same path, things around us would still have changed. The people, the circumstances, and even our own feelings would have evolved. Regret does not consider this. It only focuses on what was lost, not what was gained. Growth requires change. Imagine if we never outgrew our childhood fears, our limited beliefs, or our early mistakes. Without change, there is no progress. Every decision we make, every adjustment along the way is a step in our journey of becoming who we are meant to be. Sometimes we have to let go of something that once felt right in order to make room for something better. And sometimes we do not realize that something was better until much later. But that is how life works. We learn, we adapt, and we move forward. The problem with regretting changed decisions is that it assumes we had full control over the future. But life is not predictable. We make choices based on the information we have at the time, but we cannot see every outcome. No matter how carefully we plan, life has a way of surprising us. What we thought was a mistake may turn out to be a blessing. What we thought was a loss may lead us to something greater. The only way to truly know is to keep moving forward instead of getting stuck in the past. Just as our physical appearance changes with time, so do our priorities, dreams, and perspectives. The person who made a decision years ago is not the same person reflecting on it now. And years from now, we will again look back with different eyes. The key is to understand that change is not the enemy. It is the very force that shapes us. Instead of fearing it or regretting it, we should embrace it. Nothing stays the same, and that is a good thing. Doubt is a natural part of decision-making. No matter how sure we are about a choice, there will always be a small voice in the back of our minds asking, what if? It is human nature to wonder about the paths we did not take, the choices we altered, and the possibilities that could have unfolded differently. But when we constantly second-guess ourselves, we weaken our ability to stand by our decisions with confidence. The more we doubt, the more we invite regret, and the more difficult it becomes to trust ourselves in the future. At some point, we must recognize that the decisions we made were right for us at that moment. Instead of living in hesitation, we must learn to trust that our past selves made the best possible choice with the knowledge and circumstances they had. Every decision is made within a certain context. When we look back, we often forget the emotions, pressures, and limitations that shape that moment. We analyze the past with a clearer mind, but the reality is that we did not have that clarity when we first made the choice. The person who made the decision was dealing with different fears, hopes, and uncertainties. It is unfair to judge that version of ourselves from the perspective of who we are now. Just as time changes our face, it also changes our ability to see things differently. But hindsight does not mean we were wrong. It only means we have grown. Constantly doubting ourselves weakens our ability to make strong choices in the future. When we second-guess too much, we become afraid of making mistakes. We hesitate, delay, and overanalyze, fearing that any decision we make will later become a regret. But the truth is, no decision is perfect. Every path has challenges, every choice comes with unknowns, and every moment of hesitation is a moment lost. Confidence in decision-making is not about always being right. It is about trusting ourselves enough to accept whatever comes next. Trusting ourselves does not mean that we will never make mistakes. It means understanding that even if a decision leads to difficulties, we are capable of handling them. We do not grow by avoiding choices or running from responsibility. We grow by making decisions, standing by them, and learning from the journey that follows. Regret only has power when we allow it to make us believe that we are incapable of choosing wisely. The truth is, no matter how things turn out, we are always learning, always adapting, and always finding our way forward. Looking back with doubt prevents us from fully embracing the present. If we are always wondering whether we should have done things differently, we miss out on what is happening right now. Life moves forward whether we accept it or not. Instead of living in the past, we must focus on making the most of the choices we have already made. Every decision we have ever changed or doubted has brought us to this moment. If we spend too much time looking back, we risk missing the opportunities right in front of us. Decisions shape us, but they do not define us. Just as time changes our perspectives, it also gives us the strength to accept our past without regret. Confidence is not about always making the right choices. It is about believing that whatever choice we made, we can still create something meaningful from it. The past is set, but the future is still in our hands. Time has a way of revealing things that once seemed hidden. What appears to be a mistake today may, with time, prove to be the very thing that led us to a better place. Life is not meant to be understood all at once. It unfolds gradually, teaching us lessons in ways we do not always expect. We often regret our changed decisions because we believe we could have controlled the outcome had we chosen differently. But time shows us that no matter how carefully we plan, life has a way of surprising us. Things that once felt like losses may turn out to be blessings, and choices that seemed wrong may eventually reveal their purpose. Instead of living with regret, we must allow time to show us what we could not see in the moment. Hindsight can be misleading. When we look back at a choice we altered, we often focus only on the negatives. We imagine how things might have been if we had not changed course, believing that the alternative would have been better. But the truth is, we have no way of knowing. Every path in life comes with its own challenges and lessons. We assume that the road we abandoned would have been smooth, but in reality, it may have led to struggles we never anticipated. Time teaches us that what we once saw as a mistake may have saved us from difficulties we were unaware of. It is easy to regret a decision when we have not yet seen its full impact. When things do not immediately go the way we hoped, we assume we made the wrong choice. But time works in mysterious ways. What seems like a setback now may be pushing us towards something greater. Sometimes life removes people, opportunities, or situations from our path because they were never meant to be permanent. In the moment, we may feel loss, confusion, or disappointment. But with time, we begin to understand that what left us made space for something better. We cannot force life to give us all the answers at once. We must trust that with each passing day, clarity will come. The way we view our past changes over time. The choices we regret today may not even matter to us in a few years. What seems unbearable now may become a distant memory, replaced by new experiences, new opportunities, and new perspectives. Time softens even the deepest regrets, allowing us to see them as part of our journey rather than as mistakes. If we allow ourselves to be patient, we will eventually see that everything that happened, every changed decision, every unexpected turn, was leading us exactly where we needed to be. Regret fades when we realize that the past cannot be changed, but the future is still ours to shape. Instead of questioning why we made certain decisions, we should focus on what we can learn from them. Every experience, even the ones we regret, adds something valuable to our lives. Time does not just heal, it reveals, transforms, and gives us the wisdom to understand our past in ways we could not before. We must trust that even when things do not make sense immediately, time will eventually show us the bigger picture. The past cannot be rewritten, but the future is still in our hands. Regret is often rooted in self-blame. When we look back at the decisions we changed, we sometimes feel as though we failed ourselves. We think about how things could have been different if only we had chosen another path, held on a little longer, or made a different move. But this way of thinking is unfair to the person we were at that time. We forget that we made those choices based on what we knew, what we felt, and what our circumstances allowed. Just as time changes our face, it also changes our understanding. It is easy to judge our past self with the knowledge of today, but doing so only leads to unnecessary self-doubt. Instead of blaming ourselves, we must learn to accept that every decision, whether right or wrong, was part of our journey. Life does not come with a perfect guidebook. No one knows exactly what will happen when they make a choice. We navigate life with the best intentions, making adjustments along the way. But because time reveals new perspectives, we sometimes look back and feel regret for changing a decision. We wonder if we should have stayed on a particular path or handled a situation differently. But the reality is that we cannot expect perfection from ourselves. Growth is not about making perfect decisions. It is about learning from every experience and moving forward with that knowledge. The problem with self-blame is that it keeps us stuck in the past. When we constantly criticize ourselves for the choices we made, we prevent ourselves from fully embracing the present. We replay old decisions, questioning what could have been, instead of appreciating what is still possible. The truth is, no matter how much we regret something, the past is unchangeable. What matters now is how we choose to move forward. Carrying regret only weighs us down, making it harder to create a better future. Accepting ourselves means understanding that mistakes, changed decisions, and unexpected turns are all part of life. No one reaches their destination without a few detours. If we look at successful people, we will see that many of them made choices they later reconsidered. Some changed careers, some walked away from relationships, and some took risks that did not work out. But instead of dwelling on regret, they focused on what they could learn. They did not allow past choices to define them. Instead, they used those experiences to grow. Growth is impossible without change. If we had never changed a decision, we would not be where we are today. Everything we've experienced, the moments of doubt, the lessons learned, the paths taken and abandoned, has shaped us into who we are. Regret only has power if we allow it to overshadow our progress. Instead of seeing changed decisions as mistakes, we should view them as necessary steps in our evolution. Time changes everything, including the way we see ourselves. The person we are today is not the same as the person we were when we made past decisions, and years from now, we will again see things differently. If we can accept that change is natural, we can let go of unnecessary regret. The past cannot be rewritten, but the future is still in our hands.